Right now, as you sit there listening to my voice, there are these microscopic muscles inside your middle ear that are actually actively shifting shapes. They're constantly adjusting their tension. And they are doing this to decide whether you are perfectly safe or, whether you're in a life or death crisis.
It's incredible.
Right. If your brain subconsciously decides you are in danger, those tiny muscles physically alter your hearing so you can no longer pick up the frequencies of human conversation. And instead, you become like hyper-tuned to the low-frequency sounds of predators.
Yeah.
Your body is making these profound biological survival decisions before you're even consciously aware of them.
It's entirely automatic. And what's really fascinating here is that this ancient automatic surveillance system is currently trying to operate in a world it was absolutely not designed for.
Not at all.
Right. We're walking around with nervous systems built for the savannah, but we're asking them to process just an unnatural amount of data at an unnatural speed every single day.
And you feel it, right? I mean, you know that feeling when your mind is just moving way too fast?
Oh, absolutely.
It's like you're sitting at your desk, or maybe you're stuck in traffic, and suddenly your brain has 12 tabs open, the notifications are pinging, the emails are piling up, and there's this desperate, almost physical need to just slow down the noise.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
You want to hit a pause button, but you just can't seem to find the controls.
Well, because the controls aren't where we intuitively think they are. We try to think our way out of feeling overwhelmed, which is, honestly, it's like trying to put out a fire by throwing a manual about fire safety into the flames.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay, let's unpack this, because that overwhelming, fast-moving mind is exactly why we are embarking on this deep dive today. Our mission is to take a sort of masterclass in entering what we're calling calm mode, resetting the mind. We're pulling together decades of research, looking at everything from cutting-edge effective neuroscience and the polyvagal theory to the neurobiology of creativity.
And, all the way back to ancient Buddhist frameworks of mindfulness.
Exactly.
And when you lay all this research side by side, a really incredibly clear picture emerges. Modern neuroimaging fMRI scans, real-time brain mapping it, is perfectly mirroring the practices that philosophers and meditators have described for thousands of years.
It's wild.
It is. We are literally watching the brain light up or calm down in the exact patterns that these ancient traditions predicted.
So the promise we're making to you today is that by the end of this deep dive, you're going to understand the underlying mechanics of your own brain.
Right.
You won't just understand why you lose your temper over a spilled cup of coffee or, why you get that impenetrable brain fog at 3 p.m. We are going to build a scientifically backed toolkit.
A very practical toolkit.
Yes. We're going to explore how to physically rewire your brain for calm, how to build genuine biological emotional resilience, and ultimately, how to unlock your breakthrough creativity.
But to get to that creative state, though, we really have to start in the basement.
Right.
Before we can learn how to calm the mind, we have to understand the exact anatomy of what happens in the brain when we completely lose control.
Right. Why you lose your mind, literally.
Yeah.
So let's paint a picture that I think everyone can relate to.
Okay.
You're at work, or maybe you're just checking your phone on the couch, and you get an ambiguous text or email from your boss, just a few words. Something like, "We need to talk about your project."
Oh, the dread.
Instant dread. Instantly, your heart rate spikes, your palms start to sweat, you feel this sudden visceral surge of panic and maybe like a flash of defensive anger. Daniel Goleman coined a term for this in the mid-90s.
An amygdala hijack.
Amygdala hijack.
He did, and it remains one of the most accurate descriptions of this phenomenon. To really grasp what an amygdala hijack is, we have to trace the actual physical route that information takes through your head.
Okay, let's do that.
So let's look at the standard, healthy neural pathway first. In a normal, non-threatening situation, sensory information like the light from your phone screen hitting your retinas as you read that email, it enters your brain and travels first to the thalamus.
I always picture the thalamus as like the brain's grand central station.
That's a great way to visualize it.
It's the central relay hub where all the raw sensory data comes in to be sorted.
Exactly. It sits right near the center of the brain. Now, under normal circumstances, the thalamus takes that raw visual data of the email and routes it up to the frontal lobes.
The cortex.
Specifically the cerebral cortex, yeah. This is the advanced, logical, rational thinking part of your brain. It's the part that really makes you human.
Right.
The frontal lobes take a moment to process the information, apply historical context, and use logic to decide, well, my boss just got out of a big meeting. She's probably just rushing and wants a routine update.
So the cortex does the heavy lifting of interpretation.
Yes. And once it has interpreted the data as safe, the cortex sends a signal down to the amygdala.
And the amygdala is that tiny almond-shaped cluster, right?
Deep in the temporal lobe, functioning as the emotional hub of the brain. So the cortex essentially tells the amygdala, here is the appropriate proportional emotional response.
Okay.
You might feel a tiny flutter of alertness because you have a meeting, but you stay calm. Your body remains at baseline.
But during a hijack, that entire logical routing system just collapses.
Well, it doesn't just collapse, it is actively bypassed.
Actively.
Yes. In what the brain perceives as a sudden crisis, the thalamus makes an executive, evolutionary decision. It decides that sending the signal all the way up to the frontal lobes for a logical, nuanced consultation that's going to waste precious milliseconds.
Wow.
And if you are facing a predator, milliseconds matter. So the thalamus routes the signal directly to the amygdala, completely bypassing the neocortex.
Leaving the logic center totally out of the loop.
Entirely.
Yeah.
The amygdala slams the panic button before your rational brain has even processed what you are looking at.
I've always thought of the amygdala as this incredibly aggressive, poorly updated email spam filter.
I love that.
It was originally designed to flag saber-toothed tigers, hostile tribes, and falling rocks. And it was brilliant at keeping our ancestors alive on the savannah. But it hasn't had a software update in 100,000 years.
Right.
So now it's throwing your entire physiology into a life-or-death panic over a vaguely worded Slack message.
Because the brain's threat detection system simply cannot differentiate between a physical threat to your bodily survival and a modern emotional threat to your ego or your social standing or your job security.
It all feels the same.
A threat is a threat. When that hijack happens, the amygdala commands the immediate release of a massive flood of stress hormones. We were talking about a heavy dose of epinephrine, adrenaline, and cortisol dumping right into your bloodstream.
And let's be really specific about what that chemical flood actually does to you in the moment, because it physically alters your cognitive abilities, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's not just a feeling. It's a structural downgrade of your brain's processing power. We see a massive depreciation in working memory.
Yeah. Consider what working memory is. It's your brain's scratch pad. It's your ability to hold multiple pieces of information in your mind at once, manipulate them, consider different angles.
Which we need for almost everything at work.
Exactly. And it relies heavily on the prefrontal cortex. But when those stress hormones flood the system, your brain literally shunts blood flow away from the prefrontal cortex and redirects it to your limbs so you can run or fight.
Your rational brain is starved of resources.
Starved and taken offline.
Which leads to what's often called the soda straw view of the world.
Exactly. Your peripheral vision, both in the literal visual sense and in the metaphorical cognitive sense, narrows drastically. You lose the neurological capacity to see multiple solutions to a problem. You lose the ability to empathize or consider another person's perspective. You are hyper-fixated on the perceived threat, whether that's the tiger or the coworker who just criticized your presentation.
This perfectly explains that deeply uncomfortable, almost embarrassing feeling you get like 20 minutes.
Oh, well, the regret phase.
Yes. The adrenaline dissipates, the cortisol levels drop, blood flow returns to your frontal lobes, and your rational brain finally boots back up. You look back at how you reacted, maybe you yell, maybe you sent a highly defensive 5-paragraph reply to that email, and you literally think to yourself, what was I thinking?
And the biological truth is, you weren't. You literally were not thinking. The machinery required for complex thought was temporarily disabled. You're reacting on pure, ancient, reptilian survival instinct.
I'm trying to visualize that, but it brings up a real point of confusion for me.
What's that?
Well, if this is a universal human hardware issue, why does the trigger threshold vary so wildly from person to person? You see it all the time. One person can take a brutal critique from a client, shrug it off, and go eat lunch.
Right.
And another person will experience a full-blown hijack, sweating and panicking over a minor scheduling change. Why is my spam filter more sensitive than yours?
That's the million-dollar question. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at neuroplasticity, how our brains are sculpted by our past experiences.
Okay.
The threshold for what triggers an amygdala hijack isn't fixed at birth. Early childhood adversity, severe trauma, or even just chronic, low-grade, ongoing stress over years that can physically alter the architecture of your brain.
Wait, let me stop you there. When you say physically alter, do you mean it actually changes the shape or size of these brain regions?
Yes. Repeated exposure to stress hormones sensitizes the neural circuits in the amygdala. It actually grows larger and more reactive.
It grows.
It does. At the same time, chronic stress weakens the neural connections to the prefrontal cortex, the very connections that are supposed to act as the brakes on your emotions.
Oh, man.
So for someone with a history of trauma or chronic burnout, it takes far less stimuli to trigger a massive overreaction. Their baseline is closer to the panic button. Their brain is perpetually primed to expect danger, so it bypasses logic much more frequently.
That is heavy. It means we can't just judge someone or ourselves really for overreacting because the physical hardware has been tuned to overreact.
Exactly.
But it also brings us to a really crucial realization. If our brains are reacting this strongly and bypassing our logic entirely, how on earth do we stop it? Because it sounds like we cannot just think our way out of a hijack. My prefrontal cortex is offline, so I can't use it to talk myself down.
You've hit on the core problem with most modern advice about stress. People will tell you to just calm down or think rationally.
Right. Which never works.
It never works.
Yeah.
You can't logic your way out of a physiological response when the logic center is powered down.
Yeah.
To stop the hijack, we have to look below the neck. We have to look at the body's ledger.
And this is where Stephen Porges and his polyvagal theory enter the conversation.
Yes.
For anyone who hasn't encountered polyvagal theory, it is an absolute paradigm shift in understanding human behavior. It takes all these confusing emotional reactions and maps them directly onto our autonomic nervous system.
Brilliant work.
And the foundational concept of Porges's work is something called neuroception.
Neuroception is a brilliant term. We are all familiar with perception, our conscious awareness of the world around us. Neuroception is your nervous system's unconscious, automatic scanning of the environment for safety or danger.
So it's happening without us even trying.
It is happening constantly, relentlessly, beneath your conscious awareness. It's reading tone of voice, facial microexpressions, ambient noise, posture.
It's like a radar dish spinning in the background 24/7. And Porges breaks the results of this neuroception down into 3 evolutionary circuits, which map perfectly to our autonomic nervous system.
Exactly.
I find it easiest to think of these circuits like a traffic light. So let's really break these down. Let's start with the green light. What is physically happening in the body when we are in the green zone?
The green light circuit is active when your neuroception determines that your environment is safe. Neurologically, this state is governed by the newest evolutionary addition to our nervous system, the myelinated ventral vagal complex. This is a branch of the vagus nerve that connects the brainstem to the heart and the lungs. When this circuit is dominant, we are in a state of social engagement.
So this is when we feel like our normal selves.
Yes. In the green light, your heart rate is regulated. Your breathing is deep and rhythmic. But it goes further than that. Because you feel safe, your body allows energy to be spent on higher level functions.
Like what?
You can make sustained eye contact. You can pick up on subtle social cues and humor. Your digestive system works properly, hence the phrase rest and digest. You are fully capable of connection, play, and complex problem solving.
It's the ideal state. But then the radar dish picks up a signal. The ambiguous email arrives. Your boss sighs heavily in a meeting. Suddenly, neuroception detects a threat, and we shift into the yellow light.
In the yellow light, the perception of danger overrides the feeling of safety. The ventral vagal complex steps back, and the sympathetic nervous system kicks in. You're mobilized.
Fight or flight.
This is your classic fight or flight state. Your heart rate accelerates, pumping blood to your muscles. Your digestion halts because, digesting lunch is a waste of energy if you're about to be eaten.
Right, and this brings us back to those tiny muscles in the middle ear that we talked about at the very beginning. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. My ear actually changes.
It does. It's a mechanism controlled by cranial nerves linked to the sympathetic state. In the green light, those middle ear muscles are tuned to extract the human voice from background noise.
Yeah.
We are social creatures. We need to hear each other. But in the yellow light, the biological priority shifts from social connection to survival. Those muscles relax, which dampens the frequency of the human voice and amplifies low-frequency background noises, like the footsteps of a predator or high-frequency sounds of distress.
That is staggering, and it explains so much about human conflict.
It really does.
Have you ever been in an argument with someone, a partner, a colleague, who is clearly in a heightened state of anxiety or rage, and you feel like they aren't even hearing the words you were saying?
All the time.
They aren't. They physically, biologically cannot process the frequency of your calm, rational voice because their ears are currently tuned to listen for a leopard in the bushes.
Precisely. Social connection is literally turned off at the sensory level. You cannot reason with someone in a yellow light state using words because their biology is blocking the reception of those words.
Okay, so that's the yellow light, fight or flight. But what happens if fighting or fleeing isn't an option? Like, what if the threat is overwhelming? That pushes us into the red light.
The red light is the oldest evolutionary circuit we have. It is governed by the unmyelinated dorsal vagal complex, which reaches down below the diaphragm into the gut.
Okay.
This circuit is triggered by a neuroception of absolute, inescapable life threat. If you can't fight and you can't run, your biology relies on its final, most primitive defense mechanism: immobilization.
Freezing, feigning death.
Exactly, you shut down completely. This isn't a conscious choice to hold still, it is a massive systemic collapse. Your heart rate actually drops dramatically. Your breathing becomes shallow, almost imperceptible.
Wow.
Your pain receptors are numbed through the release of endogenous opioids. You might dissociate, meaning you mentally disconnect from your physical body. It's the biological equivalent of a possum playing dead, hoping the predator will lose interest.
So if we take this understanding of the green, yellow, and red lights, how does this map onto someone who has experienced severe trauma, like PTSD? Because we casually use the word trauma a lot, but neurologically, something profound is broken, isn't it?
It is. We often think of trauma as just a really bad memory, but severe trauma actually causes structural damage to the limbic system.
The hardware again.
Yes, it impacts not just the amygdala, making it hyperreactive, but it damages the locus coeruleus, which regulates arousal, and the thalamus, which we know is the sensory relay station.
So the hardware itself is injured.
Yes. In a healthy brain, after a threat passes, the nervous system naturally bounces back from the yellow or red light into the green light. It reestablishes safety. But in a traumatized brain, that elasticity is gone.
It just can't bounce back.
The brain loses its natural ability to relearn safety. The baseline shifts. So the person becomes chronically stuck in the yellow zone, always anxious, hypervigilant, scanning for threats, or trapped in the red zone, feeling lethargic, depressed, and dissociated.
Which means every time they encounter a minor trigger, the body doesn't just remember the past trauma. The body genuinely believes the past trauma is happening right now in the present moment.
That is the tragedy of trauma. The timeline collapses. And this brings us to a fundamental divide in psychology: top-down processing versus bottom-up processing.
Right.
Top-down processing is using your neocortex, your logic, your thoughts, your language to regulate your emotions. With cognitive behavioral therapy, it's telling yourself, calm down, it's just an email. My boss is actually very supportive.
But we just established that during a hijack, or when someone is stuck in a yellow or red trauma state, the neocortex is offline. The blood flow isn't there.
Right, which means top-down processing often fails when you need it the absolute most. You cannot impose logic onto a system that is shut off its logic receptors.
I look at it like a computer issue.
Okay, how so?
Let's say your laptop is overheating, the fan is screaming, the bottom of the case is burning hot. Top-down processing is like trying to fix that hardware overheating problem by opening up a software program and running a diagnostic script.
So that's a perfect analogy.
You can run that software, the talk therapy, the logical reasoning all day long, but if the physical motherboard is melting, nothing is going to compute. You have to cool the machine down first. You can't logic your way out of a fire alarm. You have to manually turn the alarm off.
That is exactly the philosophy of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. He's one of the world's leading experts on trauma. He asserts very bluntly that you cannot just move your tongues around to heal.
Meaning talk therapy alone isn't enough.
What he means is that simply talking about your trauma or talking about your stress while your body is currently in a state of sheer physiological panic does not heal the neural pathways. In fact, if you recount a traumatic event and your body goes into the yellow light, you might actually be re-traumatizing yourself, etching that fear pathway even deeper into the brain.
So if top-down doesn't work when we're triggered, what do we do?
We use bottom-up processing. This is about using primary sensory experiences, movement, touch, and breath to regulate the physical body first.
Working from the outside in.
You send signals of safety from the body up to the brain, rather than trying to force logic from the brain down to the body, you have to regulate the physiology to coax the prefrontal cortex back online.
So, practically speaking, how do we cool the motherboard? How do we use these bottom-up methods to get our nervous system out of the yellow and red lights and guide it back into the green? What are the actual mechanics of activating calm mode?
To do that, we have to strip away a lot of the mystical, esoteric baggage that surrounds the word mindfulness. We need to look at mindfulness not as a spiritual retreat, but as a highly practical, rigorously tested neurological tool. It is the physical mechanism by which we hit the brakes on the amygdala.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I was looking at the data on human thought production. The brain produces thousands of thoughts an hour. It is just an endless cascading stream of noise, judgments, anxieties, and memories.
Not stop.
But the research shows that through very specific techniques of focused attention, we can actually slow that noise down and create what psychologists call psychological distance or metacognitive awareness.
Metacognitive awareness is the fulcrum of emotional regulation. It is simply the ability to think about your own thinking.
Right.
It is the capacity to step back from the rushing river of your mind, stand on the riverbank, and observe the water going by. You recognize that you are the observer, not the water. A thought is just a transient mental event. It is not an absolute truth.
This concept actually has incredibly deep roots. A lot of the modern neuroscience maps perfectly onto ancient Buddhist psychology, specifically the Abhidharma literature and the philosophical work of Dharmakirti.
Yes, those ancient texts are remarkably precise.
They spend a lot of time analyzing this idea of de-reification. Can we break that down? What exactly is de-reification? I feel like that's a term that gets thrown around in academic circles, but it's hard to grasp in daily life.
It is a dense term, but the concept is highly practical. Let's start with its opposite, reification.
Okay.
Reification is when your mind takes an abstract, fleeting concept or feeling and treats it as if it were a solid, concrete, permanent reality. For example, you make a mistake at work. A thought pops up, I am a failure. Reification is when you fuse with that thought. You believe that being a failure is a solid, unchangeable fact about your core identity. You make the abstract real.
And when you believe you are a failure, the amygdala sounds the alarm because your survival is threatened by your own incompetence.
Exactly. De-reification is the active practice of reversing that. It is training the mind to see that thought, I am a failure, not as a statement of objective reality, but simply as a dynamic, constructed, temporary mental event.
Just a thought.
It is a passing cloud. It's a data point, and a highly biased one at that. By practicing de-reification, you strip the thought of its perceived permanence. And when the thought loses its weight, it loses its power to trigger the amygdala.
So how do we actually do that in real time? One of the most powerful tools I found in the research is something called affect labeling.
A fantastic technique.
I have to admit, when I first read about this, I was incredibly skeptical. The idea is that you simply name the emotion you are feeling, but it's about the syntax. You shift your internal language from I am angry to I am experiencing anger. Does changing a couple of words really do anything?
It does. It sounds deceptively simple, but the fMRI scans of people doing this are undeniable. When you say I am angry, you are reifying the emotion. You are fusing your identity with the anger. The amygdala is running the show.
Right.
But the moment you pause to accurately label the emotion, I am experiencing anger, or even more specifically, I am experiencing a feeling of betrayal, you are forcing your brain to engage its linguistic and rational centers.
Because you have to search for the right word.
Yes. Finding the precise vocabulary word requires the prefrontal cortex. You are actively shunting blood flow away from the emotional center and pulling it back up into the logical center.
That makes so much sense.
Studies show that this simple act of affect labeling can literally cut the physiological intensity of the emotion by up to 50%. You are taking the steering wheel back.
Okay, I want to make this as actionable as possible for you listening. Let's walk through a specific combined framework for this calm mode reset, pulling together the best bottom-up practices.
I love this idea. Let's build a mental algorithm.
Yes, like a biological script we can run when things get chaotic. Let's say you're at your desk, the email arrives, and you feel the hijack starting. Your heart rate is up. The very first step is to bypass the brain entirely and speak directly to the nervous system using your breath. Specifically, the 4-2-6 method.
Crucial step.
You breathe in quietly through your nose for 4 seconds, hold that breath gently for 2 seconds, and then exhale slowly and deeply through your mouth for 6 seconds.
I want to highlight the mechanics of why that specific 4-2-6 ratio is so vital. It's not just about getting oxygen. When you inhale, your heart rate naturally speeds up a little bit. When you exhale, your heart rate slows down.
Okay.
By making the exhale significantly longer than the inhale 6 seconds out versus 4 seconds in, you're heavily stimulating the vagus nerve. That long exhale sends a profound biological message directly to your heart to slow down.
Wow.
And when the heart slows down, it signals the brain, hey, the heart is calm, therefore we must be safe. You can turn off the yellow light.
It's a manual override. So you run the 426 breath script, the physical panic dials back just a notch. Next, you focus your attention outward. You find a physical object in your environment, a coffee mug, the texture of your desk, and you just study it for 5 seconds. Ground yourself in the physical reality of the green light.
Bring yourself into the present.
Right. Then, if the anxious thought is still swirling, you run the affect labeling step. You say to yourself, I am having the thought that this project is going to fall apart. You don't fight the thought, you label it, and then you consciously release it.
And as you do that, you incorporate a body scan. This is another crucial piece of the puzzle. While you are breathing, you actively scan your body for tension. Are your shoulders up by your ears? Is your jaw clenched?
I always find I'm holding my breath or clenching my stomach without realizing it.
Most of us do. The physical tension is a feedback loop, keeping the amygdala on high alert. When you consciously scan your body and intentionally release that tension, maybe by doing a quick stretch or just letting your shoulders drop, you are activating a brain region called the insula cortex.
The insula?
The insula acts as a bridge. It links physical sensation to emotional awareness. By simply noticing the physical tightness without judging it and letting it go, you disrupt the stress loop and significantly lower your circulating cortisol levels.
You can almost visualize it. As you do the slow 4-2-6 breath, you can picture those frantic, racing thoughts as chaotic bubbles in water. And as you breathe and label and release the physical tension in your jaw, the water calms. The bubbles slow down and they just drift upward and away.
That's a beautiful way to frame it.
And if you find it hard to do this entirely in your head, another great tool is simply writing down your mind state. Literally grabbing a pen and writing, I am feeling overwhelmed by deadlines. The physical act of externalizing the thought puts distance between you and the panic.
There are a few other excellent quick deployment tools that are deeply grounded in this neuroscience. One is the 6-second rule.
How does that one work?
When you feel a trigger, just force yourself to delay any reaction, no typing, no speaking for 6 seconds. That is often just enough time for the initial massive burst of amygdala chemicals to begin dissipating, allowing a sliver of rational thought to enter.
I also really appreciate the SOP technique. It's an acronym. Stop what you are doing, take a breath, observe what is happening inside you without judgment, and then proceed mindfully. It's a forced micropause.
It breaks the automatic reaction.
And then there's the HALT method, which I think is just common sense biology. Before you react to anything, ask yourself, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Because if you are any of those 4 things, your baseline stress threshold is already dangerously low. Your system is primed for a hijack. Eat a snack, take a walk, and then reply to the email.
Another visualization technique that is incredibly effective is the thought stream technique. You close your eyes and visualize your thoughts not as facts, but as leaves floating down a stream. You spend a couple of minutes just watching them drift by.
Just observing.
A thought about your mortgage floats by. You notice it, but you don't jump into the water to grab it. Thought about a past argument floats by. You watch it pass. This active, detached observation strengthens the neural pathways in the prefrontal cortex while simultaneously telling the amygdala's alarm system to stand down.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate here, because I can hear the pushback right now. Someone listening is driving to work or trying to manage 2 toddlers, and they are thinking, this all sounds lovely. Floating leaves, 4-2-6 breathing, body scans, but what does this mean for someone who operates in the real world? I don't have 45 minutes a day to sit cross-legged on a velvet cushion and achieve enlightenment. I have a brutal commute, I have deadlines, I have a mortgage.
That is absolutely the most pervasive and damaging misconception about mindfulness. We have commercialized it into this luxury spa experience.
Yeah.
But the hard neuroscientific research, particularly longitudinal studies coming out of Harvard, tells a completely different story.
Okay, what does the data actually say?
When it comes to structurally changing your brain, frequency over duration is the key metric. You absolutely do not need an hour a day. In fact, a 30-second micro gap is enough to initiate change.
Wait, 30 seconds. Are you saying a half minute of breathing actually does something measurable to the brain?
Yes. Think of it like building a muscle. You don't build a bicep by going to the gym once a month for 10 hours. You build it by doing short focused reps consistently.
That makes perfect sense.
Taking 30 seconds to do a body scan while you're waiting for your coffee to brew, doing 3 cycles of the 4-2-6 breath while you were sitting at a red light, taking 10 seconds to use effect labeling before you open your inbox. Doing these short, deliberate micro-practices frequently throughout the day forces your brain to repeatedly practice the transition from yellow light to green light.
You're greasing the neural pathways.
Exactly. And over time, this triggers neuroplasticity. It physically thickens the gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, giving you more executive control, and it literally shrinks the density of the amygdala, making you less reactive. It's about consistency, not duration.
That is incredibly empowering. It means Palm Mode isn't a destination for monks, it's an accessible tool for anyone with 30 seconds to spare. So we use these micro gaps to hit the brakes. We name our emotions, we breathe, we regulate the body, we cool the motherboard, we enter calm mode. But, so what? What does this all mean in the grand scheme of things? Is the goal of life just to walk around feeling vaguely numb and untriggered?
Not at all. And this is the pivot point.
Because here's where it gets really interesting. Once we use these tools to achieve calm mode, we don't just return to a flatline baseline of mere survival. We don't just exist. By regulating our nervous system, we actually unlock a massive neurological upgrade. And that takes us into the ultimate reward of this deep dive: dopamine, the ACC, and the science of unlocking creativity.
This is the payoff for all the hard work of regulation. When the mind is calm and we achieve what psychologists call a state of positive affect, which doesn't mean ecstatic joy, it just means we feel fundamentally safe, content, or mildly curious. The brain alters its chemical cocktail.
It changes the mix.
It begins to release dopamine. But it doesn't just flood the system randomly. It releases dopamine into a very specific, crucial area called the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC.
I am fascinated by the ACC. Why is that specific piece of neural real estate so important?
The ACC sits like a collar around the front part of the corpus callosum, which connects the 2 hemispheres of the brain. It is deeply involved in error detection, but more importantly, it controls the shifting of attention.
Shifting attention.
Yes. When you are stuck on a problem, your brain is usually hammering away at the same obvious but incorrect associations. When dopamine hits the ACC, it massively improves your cognitive flexibility. It allows the brain to quickly abandon those incorrect, well-worn pathways and effortlessly switch its attention to novel, subtle, distant connections that it would have otherwise completely ignored.
So it's the neurological mechanism for the aha moment.
Precisely. That sudden flash of insight where 2 seemingly unrelated ideas suddenly connect to form a new solution that requires a dopamine-rich ACC. And the ACC cannot get that dopamine if the system is flooded with cortisol from a hijack.
So creativity isn't this mystical lightning bolt striking from the heavens. It is a biological process, and it absolutely requires a regulated green light nervous system to occur. This lines up perfectly with Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory, which is one of my favorite concepts in positive psychology.
Fredrickson's work is foundational here. Her research demonstrates that positive emotions, feelings like trust, curiosity, amusement, and joy, physically and cognitively, broaden our mindset.
It's the exact opposite of what happens in the hijack. Remember the soda straw view we talked about earlier? When we are stressed, our vision and our thinking narrow down to a single point. But positive affect does the reverse. It moves us from that narrow, stressed focal point into what is called a panoramic gaze.
Yes, when you feel safe and positive, your literal visual field expands. You take in more peripheral visual information, and cognitively, your mind operates the same way. You see a much wider array of possibilities. You open to new information, even if it contradicts your current beliefs.
I like to think about this using another computer analogy. Let's talk about RAM, random access memory. It's the short-term memory your computer uses to juggle the tasks you are actively working on.
Right.
If your brain is operating in a state of chronic stress, you are using 90% of your cognitive RAM just to suppress your anxiety, constantly scan the environment for threats, and manage the toxic load of cortisol in your blood. You have absolutely no bandwidth left for innovation. You can barely compose an email.
You are functionally depleted.
But when you use mindfulness, when you use the 4-2-6 breath and effect labeling to regulate your nervous system, you turn off those background threat scanning programs, you free up all that cognitive RAM, suddenly you have the surplus processing power to connect abstract ideas.
It's a profound shift.
Creativity isn't about forcing your brain to work harder, it's about clearing the clouds, clearing the RAM so the sun can naturally come through.
And this is exactly where emotional intelligence, or EI, acts as the superfuel for creativity. People often think of emotional intelligence as just being nice or good with people. But structurally, high EI means you have the profound self-awareness to recognize when your RAM is getting clogged with stress.
You notice the overheating.
Yes, you possess the emotional regulation skills to quickly calm yourself down using bottom-up tools. And crucially, you have empathy.
Why is empathy so vital to the creative process?
Because empathy is the ultimate form of cognitive flexibility. It is the ability to step entirely outside of your own lived experience and view a problem through the lens of someone else's perspective. Innovation rarely happens in an echo chamber.
Right.
Empathy allows you to synthesize diverse viewpoints, which is the absolute bedrock of creative problem solving. Furthermore, high emotional intelligence allows you to reframe creative blocks. Instead of the amygdala seeing a block as a personal failure that triggers a hijack, EI allows you to view it as an interesting puzzle to solve.
So a calm mind is the prerequisite for a creative mind. But what happens when we take that creativity and actually do something with it in the physical world? What happens when we externalize it and engage in the arts? That brings us to our final exploration, the arts as a neurological high road.
This is where the science transitions from being just practical to being truly beautiful. We often view art as a luxury or a hobby. The ultimate expression of this regulated creative state is engaging in the arts, painting, writing, playing music, dancing.
It feels like the peak of human expression.
But the research reveals something far more profound. Art isn't just the result of a calm, healthy mind. It is actually one of the most powerful neurological tools we have to build and repair a mind.
Okay, let's look under the hood. When we sit down to draw or play guitar or engage in a dance routine, what is actually happening in the brain networks?
Engaging in the creative arts is unique because it demands the simultaneous activation of two entirely different, often opposing neural pathways. On one hand, it activates the medial prefrontal cortex, the MPFC. We can think of the MPFC as the brain's high road.
Okay.
It is responsible for advanced cognitive processing, planning, and adaptive emotional regulation. But simultaneously, engaging in art activates the amygdala, the low road responsible for visceral, primal, intense emotion.
Wait, hold on. Didn't we just spend the first half of this deep dive trying to figure out how to turn the amygdala off? Why do we want it activated now?
This is a crucial distinction. We were trying to stop the amygdala from hijacking our logic when we needed to be rational. But we do not want a dead or completely deactivated amygdala.
We don't want to be robots.
Exactly. A blunted, unresponsive amygdala is actually a primary biomarker for severe clinical depression and apathy. A healthy human experience means we want to be able to feel our emotions deeply, passionately, and viscerally, but we need to feel them safely.
Safely.
The arts provide the container to do exactly that. You get to safely feel the roaring, primal fire of the amygdala while your MPFC stays completely online, actively shaping that emotion and keeping you grounded.
That makes perfect sense. It's like tending a fire in a fireplace, rather than letting it burn down the living room. The art provides the bricks. And to understand how this coordination happens, we need to talk about three core networks in the brain that are heavily referenced in the research: the default mode network, the central executive network, and the salience network.
These are essential to understand.
Let's spend some time here because understanding these networks is like getting the blueprint to your own consciousness. Let's start with the default mode network, or the DMN.
The default mode network is what your brain does when it's supposedly doing nothing. It is the network that becomes highly active when you are daydreaming, introspecting, remembering the past, or imagining the future. It is heavily involved in self-referential thought, thinking about me and my story.
Okay, and the central executive network, the CEN.
The CEN is the exact opposite. It is the conscious, rational brain maintaining intensely focused, externally directed attention. It is active when you are doing a math problem, navigating a new city, or reading a complex document. When the CEN is highly active, the DMN usually quiets down, and vice versa.
And mediating between them is the salience network, the SN.
Think of the salience network as the brain's master switchboard operator. Its job is to monitor all the internal and external stimuli and decide what is most salient or important right now.
It decides what gets attention.
Yes. If you are lost in a daydream, so your DMN is active and someone calls your name, your salience network detects that crucial stimulus and instantly toggles the switch, turning down the DMN and activating your central executive network so you can respond.
And what's fascinating is how the dysfunction of these specific networks directly maps onto our mental health struggles. For instance, if your salience network becomes hyperactive, its switchboard is constantly flashing red. It perceives mundane things as urgent threats. That is the neurological basis of chronic anxiety.
And conversely, if you have hyperconnectivity within the default mode network, you get trapped in your own internal narrative. You can't toggle out to the present moment.
Fear.
You get stuck in endless looping negative rumination about your past failures or your flaws. That hyperactive DMN is a hallmark of depression.
But here's the magic of engaging in the arts. Making art forces these three networks to play in perfect harmony. You need the default mode network to imagine the painting or the melody. You need the central executive network to focus on the technical skill of holding the brush or fingering the guitar string.
Yes, exactly.
And you need the salience network to gracefully toggle between the internal imagination and the external execution. Creating art harmonizes a fractured brain.
It does. And it highlights the critical difference between adaptive regulation and maladaptive regulation. Maladaptive regulation is what most of us do, emotional suppression. We feel anger or sadness, and we just swallow it. We force it down.
We put on a brave face.
Right. But neurobiology shows us that suppression doesn't make the emotion vanish. It simply blunts the amygdala over time, leading to depression, while simultaneously causing immense physical harm to the body. Suppressing emotion chronically elevates your heart rate, spikes your blood pressure, and keeps cortisol leaching into your system.
It's toxic.
It is. Adaptive regulation, on the other hand, which includes cognitive reappraisal and the creation of art, actually processes the emotional energy and expels it from the nervous system.
There is a specific brilliant study highlighted in the research that proves this point flawlessly. It's often referred to as the drawing study. Researchers took a group of college students and intentionally induced a state of fear and anxiety by making them watch a highly disturbing, scary video. Then, they split these frightened students into two groups.
And they gave each group a different task while monitoring their brain activity using functional near-infrared spectroscopy, or FNIRs, which measures real-time blood flow in the cortex.
Right. So, Group A was told to use a strategy of distraction. They were handed paper and asked to draw a picture of a generic house. Group B was told to use venting. They were asked to draw the negative emotion they were currently feeling, to literally put the fear and anxiety they just experienced onto the page. What happened?
The real-time brain scans were revelatory. Initially, in the first few minutes, the distraction group, the ones drawing the house, reported feeling better faster. Distraction was a quick fix. It pulled their attention away from the fear. However, the venting group, the ones drawing their actual fear, showed significantly higher sustained blood flow and activation in the medial prefrontal cortex.
Because they were doing the heavy lifting. They weren't hiding from the emotion. They were actively engaging that high road of the MPFC to process the fear generated by the amygdala.
Exactly. And the long-term results proved it. After a relaxation period, they tested both groups again. The venting group, the expressive art group, achieved a much deeper, more profound, and biologically lasting emotional recovery than the distraction group.
That's amazing.
The distraction drawing acted like a psychological band-aid. It covered the wound. The expressive art acted like a cure. It cleaned the wound out.
This raises a really important question for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people listening. I am terrible at art. I mean, drawing a recognizable stick figure is a genuine challenge for me. Does this mean we need to be skilled artists or musically talented for this neurological magic to actually work?
It's the most common hesitation people have, and the short answer is absolutely no. Skill level, talent, and the aesthetic quality of the final product are completely irrelevant to the neurological benefit.
So the brain doesn't care if the drawing is ugly?
The brain only cares about the process. The therapeutic mechanism is the physical act of taking internal, chaotic, visceral, emotional data, that heavy feeling in your chest, that frantic energy in your head, moving it through your motor cortex down your arm, and externalizing it onto a page or into a piece of clay or through the movement of a dance.
It's about moving the energy.
That process of translation inherently engages the MPFC and creates coherence in the nervous system. You are taking the invisible weight inside of you and making it visible outside of you. You don't need to be Picasso to heal your brain. You just need to move the energy.
I love that imagery. Taking the invisible weight inside of you and making it visible. As you do that, as you sit there and breathe slowly, using that 4-2-6 breath, and watch those internal bubbles of chaotic thought drift upward and out onto the paper, the noise finally calms down. You find the
creates a perfect biological feedback loop of regulation. You observe the terrifying emotion, you externalize it safely, and your brain recognizes the ultimate truth. You have survived it, the tiger is gone, the green light turns back on.
Wow. We have covered an immense amount of ground today. Let's try to synthesize this entire journey for you. We started by looking at how our ancient brains are fundamentally mismatched for the modern world. We saw how the thalamus can bypass our logic, resulting in intense amygdala hijacks where we literally lose our minds to stress hormones.
We then explored the body's ledger. We learned how trauma and chronic stress live in the physical body, altering our polyvagal circuits and trapping us in yellow states of hypervigilance or red states of immobilization. We realized that we cannot simply talk our way out of a physiological crisis.
So we learned how to hit the brakes using bottom-up processing. We discovered that mindfulness isn't about clearing your mind completely, which is impossible, but about creating psychological distance. By utilizing 30-second micro gaps, practicing the 4-2-6 slow breath to stimulate the vagus nerve, and using effect labeling to bring the prefrontal cortex back online, we can actively shift ourselves into calm mode.
Which then unlocks the ultimate reward, the release of dopamine into the ACC, giving us the cognitive flexibility and the panoramic gaze required for profound breakthrough creativity.
And finally, we saw how engaging in the creative arts is perhaps the ultimate human brain hack, a way to safely fire up our deepest, most primal emotions while maintaining the high road of cognitive control, leading to deep structural emotional recovery.
It is a complete, scientifically validated neurological toolkit for navigating the chaos of the modern world.
And the most important takeaway for you listening to this right now is that self-awareness isn't a destination you arrive at. It is a daily, moment-by-moment practice. The next time you feel your heart rate spike over an email or you find yourself gripping the steering wheel in traffic, remember that you have the tools to intervene.
Just pause.
Try the 5-second label trick. Just say to yourself, I'm experiencing frustration. Take that slow, deliberate exhale to engage your vagus nerve.
Give your physical brain the 30 seconds it needs to cool the motherboard and rewire itself.
I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on. We've seen the hard data today on how our brains are constantly rewiring themselves based on our experiences. We've seen how creating art allows us to process our darkest, most complex emotions safely, harmonizing our neural networks. So if we look at the big picture, what if the true evolutionary purpose of human creativity isn't just to make beautiful things to hang in museums? What if the intense, uniquely human drive to create art evolved for a much more crucial reason, to literally heal our own biology?
It's a staggering possibility. Perhaps creativity is our species' built-in biological survival mechanism for the mind.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you go back to your day, take a mindful breath. Watch those floating, chaotic thought bubbles slowly transform into quiet stars in the clay night sky of your mind. And remember that every calm moment has the power to turn noise into insight. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.